let's talk about America and what's just happened. Emily, what's just happened?
Okay, where to begin? Which circle of hell should we start in? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we'll start with the RNC. Now, at the time, just listeners, at the time that you're listening to this, we've had 3 nights of the RNC, but at the time that we're recording this, we've only had 2. So if something wild happens tonight and I don't cover it in this section, you have my apologies. But yeah, I mean, the Republican National Convention, aka Trump's coronation, where politicians from all across the Republican spectrum come together to kiss the ring. I mean, look, here's this convention is notable for, I would say, 3 reasons. The first is that Republicans who once said horrible, horrible things about Trump are now standing before you saying that you should vote for him. And in fact, normally the presidential candidate only comes out at the last night to give his speech and accept the nomination. Trump comes out every night, and there's like the Trump applause section of the convention. The second is that they coincided it with the selection, the announcement of the selection of J.D. Vance to be Trump's running mate. We will talk more about him in this podcast. And the third reason is is because this follows this assassination attempt, which we will also speak a bit more about. And so, after the assassination attempt, Republicans, and especially Trump, were like, this is really the time to unite the country. But listening to the speeches, it's very clear that what they mean by that is we will continue our same policy of attacking immigrants and the media and the radical left and the Democrats and so on and so forth. And then at the end, we will invite you to unite behind Trump. That is not what unity means, but it is in this world that they've constructed. I'm trying to think of other notable. Okay. Should we talk about JD Vance?
Well, let's talk about JD Vance. I was going to ask, because we'll get back to the assassination attempt in a moment, but I just wanted, before we really talk about that in detail, because that's an event in itself. Mm-hmm. How has that affected the whole way that the RNC has gone? Has it changed the atmosphere and the way that everything's playing?
It's changed it in that, people who are there, I'm in DC, I'm not in Milwaukee, people who are there are reporting on, almost like a joyful atmosphere. I think that it is, not that there wasn't some of this before, but I think it's infused further Christian discourse into the election. You're hearing a lot of God saved Trump, or, Tim Scott said, we still believe in the King of Kings, prayer works, the devil came to Pennsylvania, but the lion got back on his feet and roared, like really marrying the language of Christianity with the language of American politics, which is a little concerning. Well, first of all, I have to say, like, this country has an epidemic of gun violence. People are killed every day. Children are killed in schools. I can't imagine what it must be like to be the victim of other political violence or gun violence in this country, and hearing that prayer spared this person, not your own family. But it's also kind of concerning, right? Because like God actually doesn't pick the president, voters do, and it's bone chilling, in my opinion, to hear politicians say in a country that ostensibly has separation of church and state that a higher power saved this person from death to bring him back to the White House. So there's been that, and I think that there's been more. Again, I think the language around unity, according to the Republican Party, that there's more of that than there would be had this assassination attempt not happened. I do have to say that I think right after there was this idea that like, oh, this was going to change everything, and I think actually, based on the polls that we've, like the only polls that we have available have suggested that actually, no, it hasn't. It's certainly been featured at the RNC, but I don't think actually that this event has, I think probably is not going to dramatically shake up the election. The election is still Trump is probably going to beat Biden because the election is about Biden's age and not Trump and Vance and the platform that they're running on.